Welcome to the Seed, Soil, and Soul podcast, where nourishing conversations grow and inspire divine manifestations. Your host is Sobande Greer, who reminds you, you are the brightest star shining, so come on through.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, wherever you are tuning into around the U.S. My name is Angelique Sobande Greer, and this is our third installment of our podcast, Seed, Soil, and Soul. So I want to welcome each and every one of you to this podcast this afternoon. Tonight, we have some special ladies on who will be sharing some ways that we can move through crisis, and especially if you are one who has children still at home, or if you are the grandparents who are parenting your grandchildren, or if you are a school teacher who is now at home and you are navigating through the virtual world of having students. Or maybe you're a school teacher at home with your own kids and you're still having to navigate through this virtual world with students. I want to welcome each and every one of you. If you tuned in last week, we had a great time with Seed, Soil, and Soul. Our topic was Pivot into Your Purpose, and we had a great discussion with our panelists. I want to welcome back anybody who's joining us again this week, and also to welcome anybody that's joining us that is new. A few housekeeping notes. I am Angelique Sobande Greer. I'm the visionary and founder of the NCB School of Herbalism and Holistic Health. We've been in existence more than 25 years. We're the first African-American school of herbalism in the South. I'm also the visionary and founder of Sacred Waters Retreat for Women of Color and the Afro-Botany Immersion Certification Program and Conference, which is held every August in beautiful and sunny Costa Rica. Costa Rica sounds really good right about now for everybody. I wish I could just gather everybody up and take everybody over to some sun and some sand. So if you are interested in any one of those platforms, please visit us on any of our social media platforms on IG, Twitter, Facebook. You can find us. We would ask that you also subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can look at the replay of all of our podcasts. We do this on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. On Thursdays, we'll do our herbal happy hour. So if you are into plants, or you just want to have a good time and tune out of all the things that have stressed you out for the week, you can tune into our herbal happy hour, same time, same place, and I'm the same host. So I want to welcome everybody once again. We're going to get started tonight. We've got four great panelists on tonight who are going to navigate some questions that we have for the listening audience and our viewing audience who's tuning in live. And we're going to get their opinions and their strategies on how to navigate during this time of crisis. It's real necessary. People, are struggling. And a lot of people are struggling with children. It's probably the biggest sector of America, families with kids. And so I would be remiss having a podcast and a platform like this and not being able to talk about how do we navigate this time or these times of crisis with children, and not just during a pandemic, but how do we navigate culturally? How do we navigate as a people? How do we navigate inside our own communities who are usually used to a lot of crisis? I hate to say it. Most of us as African Americans live in crisis mode a lot. So this is going to be a really good discussion on how people can get some additional tools and strategies to help them navigate through crisis. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go and read briefly the four ladies that we have on tonight. Please take a look at their full bios on any of our social media platforms. You'll be able to read about them in depth. And before we sign off tonight, I'll have each of them, if they have a certain platform or a website or a book an email that they would like to share with the audience. In case you want to get in touch with them afterwards, we'll let them do that. So our first person up is actually not only just a friend of mine, but she happens to be a sister cousin, and she's one of my first cousins. Her name is Adrianne Goddess Ma'at Davenport, and Adrianne is a wife and mother of 3 children, 2 twins, as a matter of fact, and a single. And she says that there are many more layers to this enchanting, nature-loving soul of hers. She's an elementary school teacher. She loves storytelling. She loves collecting crystals and using herbs and stargazing. She's a lifelong learner, and Adrianne is constantly reading and exploring and studying of ways and thinking of ways to ascend in knowledge. So hello, Adrianne. If you could wave to everybody so they could see your beautiful face. And then our next sister is my sister, my biological sister, the only sister I have. I only have 1 sibling, so it's me and her against the world. La-ti-da-da, me and you must never part. Her name is Ivory Rollins, and Ivory was born July 20th, 1979. She's about 10 years younger than me. To my parents, Dana and Sandra Rollins, she was born into the kingdom of God at the age of 7. At St. Stephen's Missionary Baptist Church, where we were both raised. And she loves to read and strives to learn new things daily. She received her bachelor's degree from Wake Forest University in psychology, her graduate degree from Florida A&M University in sociology, and an additional master's degree from the University of Louisville in counseling psychology. She currently works as a school counselor for the Jefferson County School System in Louisville, Kentucky, my hometown. Ivory is deeply loyal to her husband, her children, her family, and her community, and values her faith in Jesus as the cornerstone of her life. And I am so happy to have her here. Her insight and her insight into the world of children and navigating kids is something that we're definitely going to need. My next sister up is this is my best friend in the whole wide world. We've been friends for 40 plus years, and it is a enduring friendship of on love and laughter. We've celebrated a lot of good times. Her name is Tammy Johnson. Tammy Johnson is a mother of 2 and a grandmother of 4. She graduated from the Youth Performing Arts School in Louisville, Kentucky. Whoop, whoop, to our alma mater. She also attended Western Kentucky University with a major in dance and a minor in child education. She's worked for the Jefferson County School System for 25 years, and she currently is a co-op child development teacher at an alternative school for teenage mothers who are completing their high school education. So hats off to Tammy. She's been working with these mothers in our city in Louisville, Kentucky. We actually have a separate school. If a girl gets pregnant during her formative years, she goes to a separate school. She can opt out and go to a separate school just for pregnant or mothers who have given birth. So they have a special curriculum, and it really helps them. And Tammy's been in there with those babies and those girls for 25 years now. So we want to give a shout out to her. And then my next sister, my twin flame, Scorpio 50 and fine sister, we know her as Ola Omi. She is a Nashville staple in the community. She is a writer, and of course, an author, a lecturer. She has done a myriad of things in these 50 years on the planet, and I am thankful to have her on. She's homeschooled all of her children, all 6 of her children, through college, and so this is also a good resource for everyone. She is a hereditary Black witch, hailing from a line of Native American and African healers, midwives, herbalists, and fortune tellers. She's initiated into the Anago tradition as a priestess of Oshun for 25 years and trained by the Metahochi Zanu in the United States. United States, and the Fatumis families in Nigeria. She's the author of 2 books on the tradition, one on Pan-African unschooling, and a collection of essays on the power of the Black woman. She's a proud unschooling mother of 27 years, and she's guided hundreds of Black women along the path to full womanhood with her classes on YouTube. You should check her out on YouTube. Her videos, her lectures, and her podcast. She is honored to fulfill her destiny through the uplifting of her sisters. So we want to thank Ola Omi for getting out of class. She teaches down in Florida at the university in Florida. So she's just getting out of class. She's tuning into this podcast. So I want to thank you. Can you ladies say hi to everyone that's on so they can see who you are? So when we get these questions, they can shift their eyes. Now, I'm going to ask everyone, do me a favor. If you're tuning into the podcast and your video feed is on, just because it can be a little distracting to others who are watching, if you've got a lot of movement going on, turn your video off and leave your audio on so that you can hear. If you're going to remain in one place, turn your video on. We'd love to see your face. But if you're going to do a lot of movement, it throws a lot of people off. So we're going to ask that you kindly turn your video feed off and put up a pretty picture of you. We'd like to see your face. So let's go ahead and get started. So the ladies have we have 10 questions for our podcast, and the ladies have been sent these questions ahead of time. You can go in any order that you'd like to. You can raise your hand, or I can call your name if you'd like to answer the question. If you don't want to answer the question, just don't say anything. It's all right. We're not here to push anybody to answer any questions. If you don't want to answer, it's all right. So let's go with this first question. What does it mean to parent in crisis mode? What does it mean? Let's define parenting in crisis mode. Who wants to take that on? Who wants to challenge that one?
As you were saying, and I was meditating on this particular question since you sent it to me, we as Black mothers and children of Black mothers are very familiar, unfortunately, with parenting in crisis, just due to our situation here in the West. However, I do want to address, the specific issues that we're facing right now, because they're a little bit different than what we are used to. So parenting in crisis, I think, specifically speaks to parenting in a situation where you feel as though you don't have access to the resources that you need to make yourself and your children comfortable, and parenting in a situation where specifically the resource that you are missing is the support. So you either don't have the community support, the governmental support, or the familial support that you need to make yourself and your children comfortable. And I think that the situation we're in right now has put us in that kind of crisis. Some of us don't have the financial resources. Some of us don't have food and things. It's difficult to get the foods and things that we're used to. Simple things like toilet paper, definitely we feel as though we can't have access to those. And because of the social distancing, then the other crisis we're facing is lacking the support that we're used to, whether it is your mom or your grandmom or auntie or someone being able to help with the kids. For me, I do a co-parenting thing that's all the way, across the country. But even with that, the breaks that I needed to take or some trips or things that I was going to do, of course, I'm not able to do that. So, that support is lacking too, just that human support from one another. So I think that would be our current definition of parenting in crisis.
Okay. Thank you, Ola Omi, for that. Who wants to take that on next?
So when I pondered this question, I immediately thought about what we're going through now, in regards to the COVID-19 situation. But I thought about it a little bit deeper, and I said, well, crisis mode could also be maybe going through homelessness. That's a crisis. Domestic violence is a crisis. So parenting through a job loss, perhaps, a death of someone close to you or a family member. And then it can be internal as well. So if you're going through some PTSD yourself, or if you're going through a little bit of depression yourself, or, just memories, and you having to parent and healthily, parent your children through all those crises is what I took as a definition in parenting in crisis mode.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Adrianne. Next on the mic.
Parenting in crisis. Firstly, I think that the other ladies were able to detail really real and germane aspects of parenting in crisis, particularly for African Americans in our society. The only thing that I would add to that would be highlighting the level of internal crises that we are not readily able to either deal with or are unwilling to acknowledge. So that compounds any crisis that we would know about, that we are aware of, that we wake up every day understanding that we have to navigate in order to do well for our children, to do well for ourselves. Anything that we are unaware of can serve to take us back several steps and make us be in defense mode. It can also make us paranoid or feel like we lack the resources both internally and externally. And then we begin to, I don't know, that could negatively affect the way that we love one another, our children, ourselves, anyone that's in our family, while we're navigating. And I think sometimes we forget about the things that are unknown. Those things really compound any known struggles.
Okay. The unknown, the unknown things are, that's the deepest, that's the deepest issues, the unknowns. And in thinking about that too, in order for us to know, we would have to be able to move past the things that we're already in crisis with. I would assume, what's the important, at the top of the food chain when it comes to crisis for our communities too. What is food and finance going to be first, or is it going to be mental health? There's so many layers to that. So that unknown one is hadn't thought about that like exactly like that. So I'd like to go a little bit more in depth in that one. Tammy, you're next. Okay, we'll come back to Tammy. She's having some issues with her audio, I'm being told. All right, so the next question is, what's been your experience parenting in crisis
time? But I'll go ahead and jump in.
That's fine.
I actually started off parenting in crisis mode. So my oldest is 29, and from the time that I became a mother, there was a crisis mode around me. I was a junior at Fisk. I was engaged, but we hadn't gotten married yet. There were a lot of different factors to that. So I think that for me, what I have always relied on in order to get through the crisis mode of parenting is knowing my own strength. I think that you really have to rely on yourself, and you really have to sink into yourself, because every type of parental crisis is similar to the crisis that we're dealing with now, in that you feel alone. I think the height of the crisis is that you don't feel like there's anyone there for you. And so you have to sink into yourself. And for me, when I take the time to sink into myself, remember my own strength, to be quite honest, although it's surprising, what that always reminds me of is the support that I actually have. So first, I started, as I was saying, parenting in crisis mode as a, unmarried mother, a young mother, 20 years old. Second times of parenting in crisis mode, I've moved several times. So there was a time I was living out of the country voluntarily. It was something that I wanted to do, but it became a crisis because, of course, as you all know from traveling, you have to acclimate yourself to the culture. So that was another time of parenting in crisis mode. I remember when my mother became ill with Alzheimer's, and being a country girl, you very much rely on your parents as your daycare, your child care, So when my mother became ill with Alzheimer's, of course, that became a big crisis for my children and I. So I just wanted to kind of outline, even though all of those are different. And so now, as I said before, I'm currently in this particular crisis of not necessarily having all of the resources I'm used to as far as food and things like that, not being able to travel back and forth between my various family members here in Florida, there in Tennessee, across the ocean, places that I'm used to going to see people, and the children not being able to see daddy and things like that. So this current crisis, I still think that what I'm utilizing is that sinking into myself, remembering that I'm fine, that I have the tools that I need to navigate everything, and always, always remembering whose child I am. And when I say that, I mean specifically my mama and my grandmama, right? I think back on Lalita, that's my mama, Ivory Rollins, Big Buddy, that's my great grandmother, Nanny M, that's my grandma. I think back on those people because they, first of all, they dealt with pandemics as well. Second of all, any other parenting crisis that I've had, those women went through it too. So even though they're not even here with me now in the physical realm, I have their DNA, right? So if they made it through, when I sink into myself, I can remember, ma'am, you have the tools to make it through. You were born with the tools to make it through. And as I sink into myself, then I remember these are your support systems, even if they are in Tennessee, even if they are all the way in Barbados, even if they're all the way in, but these are people you can reach out to, and they're going to give you their input, and they're going to make sure that you're okay. So those are my experiences, and that's the tool that I always use, even until today. I was just using it yesterday because like everybody else, I try to remain as calm as possible, but yeah, you get to a point where you're freaking out. So that's the tool I use, is sink into yourself, remember who made you, and all of the wonderful tools that gave you to sustain yourself and your family.
All right, thank you, Ola. Adrianne?
Hi. Okay. Unfortunately, I had to parent through a few crises, but I guess it's kind of a good thing too, because it was a way that I could use it as ammunition to propel me forward. So I had to survive domestic violence from the father of my children, my 3 children. After the domestic violence, or during the domestic violence issue, my mom died. Right after my mom died, my baby, who was 1, broke his femur. After the baby broke his leg, I decided that I was going to leave the abusive father of the children and go to Indianapolis, and I left all my stuff. After that, so it was homelessness. And then after dealing with all of that, I was dealing with a bit of depression. And so, yeah, I had to deal with a lot of crisis, but something that helped me get out of the crisis, I would think, is I was operating in autopilot for so long, I finally decided that enough was enough. You know, I had gotten up to almost 300 pounds. I felt like I was just a storm cloud, and I just sunk into my spirituality. And really my spirituality, and I call it my angelic team, just really helped me, and a whole lot of supplements, okay, helped propel me out of my crisis mode.
Okay, thank you, Adrianne. Ivory?
I've parented through a couple of seasons of crisis. One, when I first had my son, I was unmarried, unattached, ill-prepared, despite believing, youth will have you believing you are prepared for anything until you get there. And then there have been a couple of bumps in the road, but real crisis came, I would say, most recently in 2017, because I became so ill that I thought I was going to die. And I had not known a crisis of that depth up to that point. For me, I lacked the physical, mental resources on my own to really manage. And I heavily relied, if not solely relied, on my faith in Jesus Christ. My faith has grounded me in innumerable ways. And particularly in 2017, I believe that God healed me completely. There were several instances whereby my family, both you, my parents, my husband, the like, supported me, but we were all ill-equipped to provide the complete healing that I received. I was diagnosed with what was a disease that one can't heal from. I was supposed to then suffer through it and do what I could by way of supplements or by way of medications or a combination thereof to abate what symptoms I had. But I've been completely healed. I wasn't prepared at all. So I couldn't support my child. I couldn't support my families in ways that I had formerly done so. And it wasn't until for me, I acknowledged that I didn't possess the capacity to do it on my own, that I was able to heal, that I was able to receive what God had for me. So I say that to say navigating in any kind of crisis for me has always been a strict reliance on a Savior that is more than me, greater than me, has been before me, has seen the end.
Okay, thank you, Ivory. And I am taken back to that year of 2017. It was a pins and needles year, watching you go through that, and I have to say now, because you're healed, the decline of you, watching you decline, and it's a helpless feeling when you're on this side of the track. So I can only imagine the anxiety and the helplessness that brought to your own, to your own spirit. So I am, always thankful and very happy that you made it through that. The day that I woke up and asked you how you felt, and you said everything was fine, not only was it a miracle for you, but it was definitely a miracle for me. So I'm thankful that your life was spared, and that that we're still here together to move through this thing together. Tammy, are you ready?
For me, it's been personal as far as parenting in a crisis, and then of course what I do now as far as my job. So me having to be another parent to the girls that is our population in our school. For me personally, and it's funny because what I do now is I parent teenage mothers. My oldest son was a teenage dad. He was 17 when his oldest daughter was born. So me having to navigate him through that was a struggle, because all of a sudden he became, he was 17, but at that point they consider you a man because you have a child. So I had to figure out how I was going to help him through that, and also help myself through that. And I also had another child at home that I was still having to parent. So it was a learning lesson for both of us. And then I went to work at the school where I'm at now in 2010. So having gone through that with him, I felt like when I got to that school where I'm at now that I could kind of understand the girls, being that I've been in that position before, trying to help and just try to help them navigate through that. A lot of our girls are always in crisis mode. Some of them don't know where they're going to be from night to night. Food on the table. Some of them live with grandmothers. So you have to be sympathetic to that, but you also have to be just ready to listen. So I'm glad that my son has gotten through that. He's a great dad, but he's still learning. I'm still learning how to help him navigate through that. Just being a parent and learning how to teach him how to parent through a crisis also. So that's been my way of dealing with that.
All right, thank you. Thank you, ladies, for your answers on that question. Now let's move into this next one, which kind of builds on the last question. So how do you manage tough emotions like your anxiety or your own anger, your own fear, while parenting in crisis mode? Olaomi?
Okay, I'm gonna have to first piggyback off what Sister Adrianne said, and I really think that it is important to make sure that you are taking good care of your body. And I know that when we are in a crisis, that is actually when it's most difficult to take good care of your body. But if you are not taking your regular supplements, your vitamins, your iron, if you're not making sure, for me, I'm a person who has a tendency to be anemic, so I have to do my chlorophyll every day. Sister Sobande, you taught me about my magnesium. So there's, several things that I know I have to do just to maintain just in a regular, everyday, running back and forth life. So when you get into crisis mode, you have to continue. I personally continue to make sure that I give my body those things. So what I have to do in order to make sure that I can still take good care of my body is I prioritize other things in my life. And I want women to know, especially sisters, but women across the board, is you have to prioritize yourself. You have to prioritize your body. Because if you're the caretaker and you haven't prioritized your body and your health, then there's not going to be a caretaker. And that's just the reality of the situation. So what I have to do in crisis is prioritize this body, prioritize this self. So what that means for me right now, as far as work and as far as school, is I have asked for every extension, because I can't believe that people are expecting me to still produce at the same rate in the middle of the apocalypse. So every time they ask me for something, I'm like, okay, I will give that to you in 2 weeks. No, I will not have that for you tomorrow. Whatever I can do to extend those types of things, I do. I don't prioritize that. Because if I get sick or if I get overly anxious, if I don't take good care of myself, none of the rest of it is going to run smoothly anyway. So that's always my thing, is to make sure that I can take care of myself. Some days that is going to look like you're going to have to work from the bed. I'm going to have to put this laptop in the bed, and I'm going to have to do everything I can do from the bed. Some days you're going to need extra rest. When the children are now doing their remote school with their school here in Florida, but before they were doing that, there were days that I let them veg out on them video games, right? I wasn't being my regular mommy self where we got a certain amount of time on a video game and then we got to go read and color and, do all this kind of stuff. I didn't do all of that because I had to prioritize myself. If I'm not well, then I'm not going to be a good mother anyway. I'm not going to be a good mother, not going to be a good sister friend, not going to be a good co-parent, you know, to my ex. So I have to, and I encourage all sisters and women, prioritize yourself. Make sure you're taking good care of yourself. Get the rest that you need. You're going to need more rest during a crisis. And let the babies rest. If the babies want to rest and veg out a little bit on video games, let the babies do that. Let them watch that old foolish YouTube nonsense that we hate. Like, send them on to their room. Let them put their headphones on. You ain't got to listen to it, right? Put the little headphones on. Let them watch a little bit of that. We all have to rest. You yourself, indulge in your little guilty pleasure. Watch mine is the 90-Day Fiance, that foolishness, right? Because it gives your mind the opportunity to rest. Your mind has to have that as well. So you indulge in a little bit of that too. You put your headphones on too and indulge in a little bit of that. But don't let yourself get to the point of isolation. But I would always say prioritize yourself, prioritize your rest, and definitely always defend your peace. Try to keep peace around yourself as much as possible. There's certain people on my phone that I used to talk to every day, and I hope they're not watching this because I done had to block them, y'all. I done had to block them. We used to text every day, and I swear they want to text me every horrible thing that's happening. I can't look at that. I can't look, so I done had to block them, and I send them, you know, good love and good energy. I sent them all out of Easter greeting and everything, but after that, I had to put them back on block. I can't do it. I can't have the constant reel of tragedy running on my phone, you know? Certain people on Facebook, I had to put them on, what's that little thing, little 30-day thing, right? I had to put them to be quiet for 30 days. I can't watch nothing else you putting up here. You making my mind bad, right? You can't. So you have to prioritize your peace as well. You can't have people in disturbing your peace. And if people can't speak peacefully, if people can't speak positively and have an outlook of, okay, how can we make it through this? What are we going to do on the other side? Then I'm going to suggest don't be talking to them every day. You can't talk to the gloom and doom people every day. So those have been the tools that I've been using.
Amen, Ashe, Yaho, namaste to all of that. Because peace, baby, if you don't have some sanctity within this chaos that they're trying to feed you, you are going to lose your mind. You are literally going to lose what good mind you have left, as the old folks would say. That is an excellent tool, protecting your peace. You might need to do a segment on that, protecting your peace, because how much smudging can a sister do? You got to protect your peace. I hadn't even thought about the blocking of the phone. Now I don't get too much of that, but that's real talk, ladies. That's real talk, ladies and gentlemen. Protect your peace. That's a great piece of information. Thank you for that. Adrianne. Yeah, we can't, your connection is low for some reason. We can't hear it. Maybe when we come back to you. We'll circle back, and then you can answer that question again, okay? Ivory, can you tackle that question for me?
Yes. I have had a great deal of anxiety that I didn't want to acknowledge. I don't know. Probably since undergrad. It was like a flip of the switch. At one point, I felt like I had it all together and was able to leverage that confidence in order to do things that were, that were a stretch. And so I was able to seek or push toward excellence by stretching in that confidence that wasn't always substantiated by anything. My ego worked really well at that time. Since having had children and now I can truly say that my ego wasn't working for me in the way that it should and in the way that it should have been. It wasn't supporting me in the way that an ego should. And I, as a direct result, lacked the confidence to stretch in ways that were past where I could see. Well, the reason why that even matters is I firmly believe that kids, no matter how small they are, need to see what looks like when they're small, like magic. They got to see parents doing things that they can't imagine anybody being able to do, because when they think mom or dad or granny or auntie or whoever's keeping them, whoever's loving them are quote unquote magic, they think that they are doing supernatural things. It gives them permission to do the same. And so I look back now and think, how I denied my son that kind of permission because I lacked the confidence. And at the core of that was anxiety. Now that I know it was anxiety, now that I know that was fear of the unknown and fear of failure and the like, I'm able to walk and talk a little differently. My chest is out a little bit further. And God is so good and he's so mindful that he's given me that opportunity to come to myself at a time when my son needs it most. He's 13 years old. If he doesn't walk into and stretch into the unknown with confidence now, he stands to lose a lot, particularly as a Black man. And so I get to show him unmatched confidence. It almost looks fake, baby, but it's real. You understand me? It almost like he almost questions it. Well, Mama, are you just saying that because you have to say that? No, baby, I'm saying it because I believe it. I'm saying it because I believe wholeheartedly I can do all things through Christ, and you can too. So even though there was a season, too long of a season, where I lacked that confidence and I suffered at the hands of the anxiety, I still have the anxiety. Oh, but I fight back now. I fight back in a way that is out loud for my son to see. You'll not have control over me, fear. You'll not have control over me, anxiety. You'll not have control over me, unknown. Because my God says he knows the plans he has for me, right? And they're to prosper me and not to harm me. And I'll rest in that. And I think that empowers him in a very rich and real way. I'm seeing in the last couple of years, as he's coming into his own, as he's going through puberty, as he's navigating relationships and his feelings and emotions, really for the very first time, as a young man, I'm seeing the fruit of that. And I bless God every day. It makes me happy to think about, because I shudder to think of me and a 13-year-old feeling like I did 5 years ago. I just wouldn't have been as good for him. And I'm not even perfect. I'm not anywhere close to it. But I feel like there's nothing that can stop me, and I want him to have that. I desperately want him to have that, because there's so many things that are set up to stop him. And I want him to understand these things won't prosper. They'll be his footstools. And that's just the end of that. So it makes me, I'm sorry, y'all, it makes me happy to think about, because I remember not feeling like that at all. I remember feeling too weak and too low and undeserving, and that was a lie. It was a lie from hell. So.
A lie from the pits of hell.
Oh, yeah.
What you said. A lie from the pits of hell. I think a lot of women suffer with that same scenario, Ivory. I don't think you were out there like a snowball in hell by yourself. I think a lot of sisters suffer through that. And a lot of our mothers and grandmothers and aunts, a lot of the women that we were born from suffered through that. And they suffered through it in silence. So what is it that we are going to do for ourselves in parenting through our crisis, through our own self-crisis, that will show us better improved as mothers, as fathers, so that we don't set our children up for failure, so that they see that these are real-time issues with real-time strategies, and maybe what we give to them, or maybe what we give to them is what we didn't have, is better tools to equip them for that road of life, because they're going to have to, we know that they're going to get some of those things, but how are they going to stand and burn, in the fire of that? Are they going to come out a diamond, or are they going to come out truly burnt? And we're going to hope that they're going to come out a diamond shining on the other side of that. So I think what you just said, is parallel a lot of the lives of sisters who are parenting in crisis, and especially a lot of women of color who parent in crisis every single day and have, or feel like they have, no resources, no outlets. They feel like they failed themselves, and the bigger story is that they feel like they failed their children. So thank you for that transparency and that insight. Tammy, would you like to add to this question?
Sure. So for me, in order for me to get through those years with my son, with his oldest child, and he was also in a toxic relationship with his child's mother. So for me, I had to take a step back and let him figure out how he was going to be able to handle that. That was me just checking in on him, making sure he was okay. I had to tell him that I can't be in that drama. It was physically, for me, it was making me physically sick. I also had to tell him that, you have a brother at home that I have to raise, and it's causing him to be upset about the situation that you're in. So for me, I had to step back and let him figure out how he needed to handle that. It was not easy for me doing that, but I knew that I had to have some peace. Yeah, so for me, that's what I had to do. And finally, he's in a much better place now, and we can talk about it. And we have a really good relationship now. But yeah, it was really tough. But I'm glad we made it through that, and I'm sure it'll be another one. Sometimes, there's always something going on, but I think we both know now how to deal with that. So that's how I had to handle it.
Right. Thank you, Tammy. Adrianne, you're back. You wanna give us your answer for that question? How do you manage tough emotions like anxiety or anger while parenting through crisis?
Yes, I had to do some pretty practical things. I remember I used to have a really bad sugar craving, and you and I had a conversation, and you said, Adrianne, that means you need to be sweet to yourself. And, what that looked like was not me going to town, buying all the brownies in the world, because that's really what I was doing. I decided to, let's not focus so much on the consumption of sugar, but let's really be sweet. So what does that look like? Well, that looks like buying myself, I bought myself flowers, and I would put it beside my bed, put it in my family room, put it on my nature table. I would drink coffee and tea, but I'd try to be fancy, and I'd put it on like my mom's china. It's like gold china with gold brimmed china. I would always meditate. That was something that I had to stick with. that's like prayer for people. So I made sure that I was always in contact with my angelic team and my spiritual guides. Something else that I would do is I kept an affirmation journal, which is like a vision board, but in a book. And I would constantly, I would say to myself that I was becoming a Zen monk. And so that what that looked like to me was finding all the positive thoughts, feelings, and words combined in one source. And I still have it, Helen, but it's right here. You know, I still have it, you know, and I keep it with me. And I would just kind of, oh, that sounds good. Okay, I'm gonna write that down. Oh, I like the way that sounds. That makes me feel fancy. I'm gonna write that down. And then something that I ended up doing toward the end of me slowly coming out of crisis is exercising, like treating my body good, being good to my body. But before that, I had to keep holy basil on deck. And that was something that you suggested to me also, is the supplements. My anxiety was through the roof. It was unacceptable and disrespectful how big my anxiety was. And so I had to control it. I had to tame the anxiety because it was crazy how it kept me from growing. You know, I was scared to death of nothing. The wind would blow, I'm scared. Well, what if, what if? It was always the what ifs. So talking to my angelic team, having the supplements, loving on myself, and support from loved ones. Not everybody, because some people had to go to timeout because they didn't know how to act on my end. They had to go timeout. So the people who I felt were very sacred to me, I kept them in a sacred spot. And I would go to those few, probably like 2 people, those few people to help support me, you know, and that really helped catapult me out of my crisis a lot. Oh, and saying no, which is another way of saying boundaries. I knew very early, I don't have to go to every event everybody's having. I'm really quick to say no because it's easier for me to say no and then turn it into a yes than to me say yes up front and then have to say, oh, sorry, I can't come. So I might start off with a no and change my mind later. But that's my way of guarding and, holding myself, safe. Like, okay, hold on. I might need some time to get myself together. And also teaching these tools to my kids. They know that when I'm meditating, that is a no. You may not interrupt me during that time. You can hold on. Is the house on fire? Is anybody hurt? Okay, then you can wait. Let mommy have her meditation time because I'm going to be a dragon if I come out too early and I'm not balanced. And nobody wants a dragon for a mama all the time.
I like dragons.
I love them.
I like dragons. Dragons they can be cool. Adrianne, you said a mouthful with that. I think the one thing that stuck out for me was putting people in timeout. That's important. That goes back to what Omi said about, only positivity is allowed in my space at this time. I can't take on the extras. So I think it's okay to put people in timeout. Doesn't mean they don't love them. Just means that, you know what, I can't support whatever it is that you're pushing my way right now because it's an extra weight for my situation. It's an extra weight for my life right now. I don't want to move like that. I want to move in this moment and vibrate the highest I can go. I want to do what's in my best interest for my highest and my greatest good. And what you're saying, what you're spewing is not resonating with me. So I think timeout is a good place to put people. Obviously you are a teacher and you're elementary school teacher because you use the words timeout. So I think it's a good way to put or a good statement to use to put adults in timeout as well. Our next question is, do you have a metaphorical reset button that you engage in when things begin to get too chaotic? Examples of that: you make tea, you pray, you bake, you sing, you go outside, you phone a friend. Adrianne kind of touched down on those types of things. Omi, what do you do for yourself? A reset button that you have during crisis mode?
All right. Me and this mute, we're gonna stop fighting sooner or later. But for me, it truly, truly is taking a quiet moment, as many quiet moments as I need, because I think that you can get so worked up that even your prayer and even your meditation doesn't feel as though you are connected. So I first have to get into a still and a quiet place. And I really do make sure that that can happen when I feel my anxiety getting kicked up. And the way that I recognize my anxiety is I will go very deep into procrastination. So I'll be on my way to something very simple, the grocery store. The grocery store has become anxiety ridden these days, because you got to put on gloves, you got to put on a mask. And you know, my Scorpio sister, we out here trying to be fly all day, every day, you know, especially now that we in this 5th decade, we got to always show out, you know, we can't never leave the house regular. So to have to put on the mask and the gloves, you know, even thinking about that, having a disinfectant with you, you know, just things that you normally don't have to think about, that can throw me into an anxiety. And so what I will do is just get into a loop of procrastination. So first I have to be aware that I'm in a loop of procrastination, and then I recognize that as my way of handling my anxiety. And so from there, what I do is just take a quiet moment. I take a quiet moment. That's my reset button. In my quiet moment, I have some water. That's the most I can do, because generally I'm too kicked up to even make the tea. So I give me some water. I bring my water into my quiet moment. I come into the room, just like Sister Adrianne was saying. I've taught my kids, if this door is closed, give me a second. Give me a second. If the door is open, come on in. But if it's closed, you know you got to give me a second. So I come in here, I relax, I figure out what it is that's upsetting me. Sometimes I will write it down. And once I take a moment, take some deep breaths, then I can go into prayer. Then I can go into meditation, and that can become an actual reset. But for me, I have to do that first step first, which is just realizing that I'm feeling anxious, kind of touching upon what Ivory said, because sometimes you don't even realize what you're dealing with is anxiety. You think this is just my personality. I'm just a procrastinator. It just takes me a long time to do stuff. But that's not true. There's a reason you do that. So when I see myself get in that loop, I stop myself gently, kindly. I speak sweetly to myself. Okay, I know we're scared. Let's sit down. Let's get a glass of water. Let's think about what we're scared about. We can write it down. You can call a close girlfriend. If she's a person who's going to say something positive to you about this fear, you can call her. And then after you get off the phone with her, say your prayers. Call grandmama and them. They always with you. Say, come on, y'all, I gotta go to this store. I know y'all did this through the polio pandemic. My mother lived through that. She used to talk about that. My brother actually had the Hong Kong flu. So she lived through a child having the pandemic, the illness that had everybody in the house. So when I feel it, that's who I say, that's who I call on. I'd be like, y'all have done this. Give me the strength to do what I need to get on up and go to this store. So that's my reset. First, recognizing the behavior, being honest with myself about it, and then sinking into your prayer, your meditation, and then your support team.
Well said. Those first two are key for me too. I was just telling my husband last week that I realize when I'm having anxiety because I have the same dream. And my anxiety invokes the dream of being in a school building as either a middle schooler or a high schooler, and I am late for class, or I can't find the class. I get to my locker and I don't remember the combination. I'm in the wrong class, always. It's always the same scenario. And it revolves around education. I'm going to have to link those two together. But I always know when I'm in anxiety mode, when that dream surfaces for me. And so I said to him the next day, I was like, oh, I must be going through some anxiety. Although I didn't readily feel like it. Like, my body didn't really feel like it. I wasn't perpetuating things physically, during my waking hours that said anxiety. But baby, that sleep and that dream, I was like, oh, okay, I'm in anxiety mode. All right, I need to push a reset button. I'm getting too much of the negative stuff in and not enough of the positive stuff out. And so for me, same thing, get quiet. Drink my, I want to do all my teas, but my gosh, sometimes that's overwhelming too when I'm feeling the anxiety. So the only thing that I can consume is water. I'll go all day with just water, and then say later at night, "Ooh, I didn't eat anything today." So I understand the method and the madness that goes on with that. And although my children are grown, I still find myself in these moments of periodic crisis mode and thinking about how am I going to proactively manage my way through that? How am I going to proactively seek more light? How is God going to cover me during this time of crisis when I definitely need it most? Because I don't want to be out here loose like the rest of these folks, just losing their mind, losing their mind and succumbing to things that they can control. If I succumb, I want to succumb to something that I can't control, not to something that is within my control. So thank you for that. Ivory, what's your reset? How are you learning strategies to reset? What are you learning to reset your life when you're feeling like that?
So it's very difficult for me to reset. I'm still actively learning how to do it well, because I get caught up in figuring everything out myself. It's very much a control thing, right? There's so many things I can't control. So this is one of the things that I can. I have to stop when I get into these kinds of cycles and remind myself control is fine, but resetting is a pushing a reset button, for example, is a form of control over my life and my ability to do things or to change things if things aren't going well. But often I don't like to be handled. And so when I feel like life is handling me, I want to get control over that which is coming at me. It's coming at me the wrong way. It's making me mad. And I tarry too long. One of the ways that I can remind myself to push the reset button, stop what you're doing. This isn't working. This is insanity. Do something different. Is I can center myself in prayer. I can center myself with food. I love to eat, so I can sit down by myself and have a good meal alone. Just really enjoy the meal, whatever it is. I like all kinds of food, but to really enjoy a good meal alone in silence, just thinking, and not always praying. Prayer usually is separate and not without any, for me, and not with any other activity. The meal, I just sit and enjoy the food and eat. And again, come to myself, okay, now you operating, you acting crazy, talking to myself, now you too, this is mental illness, now you trying to gain control of something, that you don't have control. You weren't there at the beginning, so you're not gonna have control at the end. Get out of the cycle. And it works. I try to, again, because my son is 13 now, I try to invite him in to my mindset, my thinking, not necessarily into, like if I sit and have a meal or if I'm praying, but I try to invite him into what's going on with me, because I want him to exercise the muscle of verbalizing what's going on with him. not necessarily to anyone else, but definitely to himself. I think that's how Black people get, that's how we get slowed down. We don't acknowledge what's going on. We just press. That's how you learn. You learn how to press. You just press. You just keep going. You just keep pushing. And that's true. But you have to cry, and you have to pray, and you have to sit, and then you press, And I think that our elders knew that. They didn't necessarily verbalize that because I think they did exceptionally well for what they had to work with and work through. So I am being intentional about verbalizing that. Okay, right now I'm engaged. This is some mental illness stuff. I'm out here too far. I'm going back and forth. Like, for example, just here in the last couple of weeks, my son going through puberty, got crazy. I don't know. Anyway, and I wanted him to stay alive. And so in order for me to do that, I had to talk to him. Listen, I feel like choking you because you've lost your mind. But here's the deal. I love you so much, and I want us to get on the other side of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a moment. And I would advise you to do the same, brother, because if you don't, and we come back after this moment, and it looks the same, I'm going to have to make another move, and you're not going to like it. And his eyes get big, and and then he might tear up if he feels real dramatic. But I give him that. Mamas and daddies back in the day, they didn't give us that. We just had to get with it. And I feel like it's fair, especially in this information age, to give them a little bit. Now, I'm not going to go through and explain myself. You're still a child, but what I will tell you is, you too far. You on the edge. Watch yourself. And let him do some work. And so I took a moment, like I said, a couple of weeks ago. As a matter of fact, I took 3 or 4 days, not away from him physically, but away from him emotionally. And he felt it. And then when we came back, we had a conversation, and we were both better off for it. So that's what I try to do. Just I have to talk things through, both with myself and others.
Talk therapy. That's been reading more about talk therapy and how beneficial it is at every stage and phase of your life. And as Black folks, we definitely need more talk therapy to work through some of our own issues as adults and childhood traumatic issues that still linger and fester when crisis happens, or sometimes maybe when crisis is not happening. We are still suffering through some of those things. So talk therapy is a very interesting form of therapy that I'm learning more and more about. Adrianne, would you like to comment on that?
Yes. Something that I know if I get to spiraling out of control, or, I'm feeling super anxious, a cold water hand rinse immediately will kind of pause my fight or flight problem that I'm having at that moment. A lot of deep breaths, and have some rescue remedy on deck, just in case I have to pop it in my mouth. But something also that those all apply once I get myself settled, but sometimes you have to reset the kids too. And all of those things work good on the kiddos for resetting them if they're kind of spiraling. Cold hand rinsing, give them some rescue remedy, talk to them, let them do the deep breaths. And sometimes if I'm doing a few deep breaths and it's sounding like the dragon is getting revved up, the people around me know, okay, she needs a moment, because we've had that dialogue that sometimes we have to inhale peace and exhale all our stress. So those are just some practical things that I try to apply with myself and the little ones around me.
All right, thank you, Adrianne. Tammy, what's your reset button?
So for anxiety, for me, it shows up because physically it shows up for me. I have an autoimmune disease, so I always tend to feel myself having a episode, and usually I know then that it's something that I'm stressing over or I'm upset over. So what I usually have to do is I usually just go to my quiet place. Sometimes that's just taking a couple days, no phone calls, no anything. I just I love classical music. My classical music on. So yeah, it always shows up physically for me. So that's what I was saying earlier. I had to explain to my son why I couldn't be in that drama because it was showing up physically, where I had to be hospitalized. And they told me that anxiety is stress. That's how it shows up for me. So I've learned over the years how to deal with that. And with the girls at school, I just let them vent. A lot of them don't have that where they can just vent at home. So I just let them vent. I don't tell them, I know, I understand it all. I just let them vent. So, and if it's their way of dealing with their anxiety, then that's how I want to help them deal with their anxiety. Just be a listening ear. But yeah, for me, it shows up, physically, and I know right away that, it's something that I need to do to get over this, and then I'll bounce back and I'll be okay.
Yeah, so the self-care theme is running throughout this entire podcast. Self-care is going to be the key component in staying balanced and stable and sane and all of those good things that weigh over into the positive side of our mental, physical, and spiritual health. With that question, can you ladies think of, or do you have any resources that you would suggest for parents who are moving through crisis mode while they're parenting? Because it's enough to deal with yourself, but when you've got another life to manage, and that's a lot. So do any of you have any resources or anything that you could give to the audience that's listening, or those who will be tuned into the replay of this? Ivory, go ahead. I saw your hand. Go ahead.
I think that it is the same way that we would shop for an article of clothing, and not just a pair of pants. It depends on how serious of a shopper you are. But think about an article of intimate clothing like underwear or a bra. These things matter, right? They touch our bodies, so we want them to be well-fitting and not ill-fitted. We want them to be fresh. We want them to not aggrieve our physical body in any way. So we check what it's made of and all of that. In the same way that we would be pay great attention to that on the outside of our bodies, we need to be pay more attention or give greater attention to who we welcome in to help us to heal. And I say that just to say we are, Black people are the largest consumer group. We spend the most money. And I want us to be just as specific and intentional about who we patronize, who we invest in to help us to heal internally, whether that be therapy, whether that be If we are interested in herbal remedies, we need to go to people who know exactly what they're talking about. You can't just walk into one of these, stores and ask the cashier and expect that we would have the best information. We have to be thoughtful and intentional in that way. I think that's where we're failing. We know how to purchase, we know how to buy, we know how to be consumers, but we're not being thoughtful in the most important places. And so we have to do that. And if we do that and we ask the questions of potential therapists, we interview them, right? We ask the questions of persons that would help us with any herbal remedies, any kind of essential oils and the like, and not trust whatever is coming through our social media feed, clicking on that and paying $19.99, we would be better off.
Okay. All right. Who else wants to answer that question? Anybody else? Adrianne?
So I'm not familiar. Well, I don't know how many women actually had the opportunity to attend Sacred Waters, and this is not a plug or anything, but for my real life changed authentically from going and attending Sacred Waters. And I think that was like the milestone of my healing. Like, I had the mindset, I had the open mind, I had the desire to change, but actually going to that retreat, 1, it's your time away. 2, water heals. 3, you're around so many magnificent women who have either had the same journey and have accomplished it and mastered it successfully. They may be going through it, and that retreat was a phenomenal decision that I made, and I'm blessed 100 times over to be able to attend that. I don't know if it was so many pieces to Sacred Waters. My first year, the first year it was held, was amazing. It was, I remember specifically, I think her name was Charmaine Gibbs, I think. She is just a tall, graceful lady who suggested doing like the spiritual baths for the family members, for the spouse if you had one, or the children, and like doing the gift of serving the family. That was amazing to me. The sweat lodge, that was my first time entering the sweat lodge, but I metaphorically decided that as I entered the sweat lodge, I was going to go into a rebirthing for myself. And when I exited the sweat lodge, in my mind, I knew I was going to come out a totally different soul, a totally different being. And I think that if you have the opportunity to visit and attend Sacred Waters, you have to invest in yourself. And that was the best investment, because the return that I got from investing in myself and investing in Sacred Waters was monumental. It was monumental. And I would suggest it to any lady: if you go once, you're going to be blessed. If you go twice, you're going to be blessed some more. Go as many times as you need to. It's going to be a lot of healing. The women that attend that retreat it's amazing to see the vibration on that land, with all those beautiful women and spiritual women and women on the same accord, with all that energy. That is what I would suggest to the women. If possible, try to attend it at least once in your whole life. At least once, try it.
In your whole life. She said in your whole life.
In your whole life.
Okay, thank you, Adrianne. Tammy, do you have anything to add for that question?
Well, I am going to hug Sacred Waters. I'm going to piggyback on what Adrianne said. sacred waters for me was something that I didn't even know that I needed. I've had many, many, many aha moments, as they say. I was told to go in the sweat lodge expecting nothing. And I did not know what to expect. That was for sure. And I came out of that very proud of myself. That because I'm a person that's afraid of the unknown. So, but I was very proud of myself when I came out of that the first time. So, 4 years later, I've been to everyone. So I'm hoping, that I will be able to attend everyone. Yeah, it's amazing. Like she said, the energy, the ladies that you meet, the friendships that you make, is just a blessing.
Thank you all. I appreciate you. Our next question is, what examples or role models can we look to parent in crisis mode? Do we have any role models out there? Who are we looking to when we need to parent in crisis mode? This question, a little bit of this question may have already been in some of your answers, but let's be more definitive. Do you think that there are any role models out there for parenting in crisis mode? I know Omi said she thinks about her grandmother and her great grandmother because they parented in crisis mode. So, do any one of you ladies want to specifically take some time to evaluate that? Are there any books or manuals or resources that parents can use? Anybody? No?
Okay, I think I'm unmuted, Sobande. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I really, book resources, I think for times like this, I really highly recommend Queen Afua's Sacred Woman, simply because it's a book that, helps you to remember your power. The reason that I always reference my mother and my grandmothers and, those family members that are on the other side is because they've done it. So, and they obviously survived because we're here. We know they survived it because we're here. And I think that it can be dangerous to look to people outside of your lineage, especially for Black people. It gets us to kind of put a Superman complex on other people. Whereas if you just pay attention, grandma was doing it, right? Grandma was in there with the loaves and the fishes. The first time I was in church and heard that story of the loaves and the fishes, the literal thing that came to my mind was my mother does that every day, right? Every time you go in the kitchen, it looks empty and your mother creates a big feast, right? And y'all just be feasting. There were 9 of us and we would feast every day off of what looked like an empty kitchen. So I think that we need to, when you look and you see that your mother has done it and your grandmother did it and her mother before her did it and your daddy did it and your uncle did it and your brothers did it, then you know that that's in you. So I think those for me are always the best role models, because those role models I can see in the mirror. When I look in the mirror and I'm feeling that anxiety and saying, I don't know if I can make it, I'm looking at the person who can do it. It's my mother's face looking back at me. So I really, really strongly urge, think about the people in your family who made it through. And that's why we're here today. And know that you have the strength to make it through. You're built for this. You're built for this. You are an indestructible being. If not, we wouldn't have made it this far. So look back into that lineage and pull from that strength. They're there waiting to pour that strength down on us. So all we got to do is look back and ask and be like, how in the world did y'all did it? Remember we used to sing in the church, my soul look back and wonder how I got over? That's what your grandmama was crying about. right? They made it through literal pandemics like this. That's what they was crying about, right? So all you got to do is ask, Grandma, how did you get over? What did you do? And she'll remind you. She'll whisper it in your ear. They'll whisper recipes to you. They'll remind you of stuff that you might not have given to the children. But did you remember to give your children this herb? Did you tell them you loved them before they fell asleep? Did you rub a little bit of this on their chest? They're always there. And to me, that tapping in, it helps to strengthen me. And then I can turn around and give that to the kids and say, this is the lineage we come through. We come from a lineage of indestructible beings. And you can tell them those stories, right? And so then it goes on. It's never ending.
All right, Ivory. Thank you, Alomi.
Listen, I completely and wholeheartedly agree with you, sister. You told the truth. You didn't tell one lie. You understand me? I think that we do a grave disservice to every single young person out here that even looks remotely like us by setting them up to go to so-called experts that look nothing like us. There is no expert that is unlike me. For me, impossible. It's impossible. And it's all layered, right? There is a level of empowerment that comes with going to a Black doctor. There is a level of self-assurance that comes from. Just the other day, something was wrong. I keep saying he's going through puberty because it's wearing me out. My son got real low real quick, and I didn't understand. I said, "Oh, something's done. You was just now up, and now you down." And I'm all right. He got so pitiful. And I said, well, come and sit right here. Of course, he didn't want to do that. And he sat down and he's looking all around. And he doesn't want to look me in the face. And then he says, and then I say to him, I said, so you're not going to tell me? I know something changed. I know it did. And he said, well, I'll talk to Granny about it. And I, my first mind, because I'm crazy, my first mind was, I want to know, I want to tell me, but out of my mouth, because I am so grateful and thankful, I had to come to myself and say, wait a minute, he has a grandmother that he trusts, that he can go to, that he can tell a thing that he doesn't want to tell me because his mom was crazy, and that's fine. And I said to him, I said, well, okay, are you going to call her? Do you want to go over there? I'll tell her when we go over there tomorrow. And he was so pitiful. Well, that's fine, right? Because what kind of power is that? How awesome is that opportunity for him to tell someone that he trusts, that I trust, and if it never makes it back to me, it's fine, because she's better than me anyway, And so I wholeheartedly agree. It made me excited to hear this, sister. That what you said was everything. We have to be intentional about reminding these young people, no matter how young they are, how rich their legacy is, how far back it goes. How we're only alive because we are descendants of those that they could not kill. You understand? And so that in and of itself makes me excited to be able to share. We just have to, in all the hustle and bustle of life, we have to take a moment to remind both ourselves of that and then our children of that.
All right. Thank you, Ivory. Adrianne or Tammy, do either one of you want to add to that question? No? No? Okay. All right. So our next question is, in what ways can you support your children while parenting in crisis? How, or what ways can you support these children during this time of crisis? I have been watching the Today Show in the morning for their like pop start moments, which is, the highlights, the happy stuff. I like to see the happy stuff. And watching the creative ways that parents who probably normally wouldn't be so creative are now forced into creativity, and being home with their children all of these weeks now, are coming up with really good ways to manage their children and themselves. So do any of you ladies have any ideas, for children, ways that you can support children during times like these? Not just the pandemic, but just in times like these when they're watching adults maneuver through crisis.
Something that I do with my students as well as my children at home, I've had to, because of the COVID-19 and the schools are shut, I've had to call and a lot of my families from my students. I call them my families because I feel like I'm, auntie to them sometimes now that we're out of school. But I notice that I have a good pulse on how they're feeling and some of the things that are going on. And some of the suggestions that I've been telling the parents is, you don't really have to put on like a dog and pony show. You don't have to really do all that so much. I mean, you can if you got like super loads of energy and you're bored, but sometimes we can be, rhythm and routines. And this will help no matter, COVID-19 or whatever. Rhythm and routines, that they're going to thrive if there's, some sort of, rhythm, and they can predict what's going to happen, even if it's like a daily rhythm to your day or a weekly rhythm. Perhaps, you wake up every day, you say your salutations, you eat breakfast, you do a little bit of your home chores. They know what happens throughout the day, or they know what happens throughout the week. So for instance, when my children were a little bit younger, Sundays were water days. So we would do all things with water: wash hair, wash clothes, perhaps paint, take sacred spiritual baths on Sundays. Wednesdays are breakfast days and baking days. So they knew that when Wednesdays came, we were going to bake something or we were going to have breakfast, something that they can predict, because it makes them feel a lot, secure. Also, their diets, they have to, if you're feeding them hot Cheetos and Snickers, they're going to be insane by the end of the day. And so they're going to drive you crazy, and then you're going to get upset, and then you're going to be thrown into your anxiety, and then the cycle's going to continue. So I'm not saying you have to give them totally organic stuff and make them vegetarians, but lay off the hot fries and the Cheetos, if you guys are living in high stress. Also, magnesium changed our life. Okay. Especially my girl twin. I don't know what it is about magnesium, but it's something about it. It helps balance those babies. And vitamins. Give them tools to express themselves. A lot of times children I can tell from, going on to my teacher side, a lot of times children are talked at more than they're talked with. So they're lacking a lot of the conversation tools and vocabulary. But give your children tools and words to express themselves. So I would one of the things that I say in the classroom and at home is, you as a human, you have the right to be upset. You have the right to be mad. However, you may not be disrespectful. Throwing your chair across the room is disrespectful. That's on the student side. But you have the right to be upset, and so they know that my students know, okay, Miss D, I'm feeling a little bit stressed out. Can I have some of your oil? And I might drop a little bit of oil in their palms and tell them to hold their heart and take a couple of deep breaths, so they know that there's tools. Miss D, can I go to the Zen corner? My kids know that they're, I've given them the proper tools and the proper words to keep them, because if they start going crazy, they might trigger the crazy side of me, and we don't need everybody in the house crazy. And also joyful moments. Give your babies joyful moments. Perhaps we can all camp out in the family room, or, watch TV together, have movie nights, storytelling. A lot of times it's children like to hear stories about when you were little. Well, what happened when you were little? When we were little, we did this. And, you know, and then also tell them stories with themselves involved in it. You know, there was a mama dragon that lived on top of a hill, and she used to guard I love dragons. And they used to guard the gemstones, and she had 3 little dragons, and their names were Patrick, Patrice, and Isaiah, and they would go across the country, you know, storytelling. But also hugs and loves. That's what I always, hugs and loves, you know, and we have to remember that sometimes we have to go back and apologize. I acted like a banshee. I was frustrated, and I may have yelled at you. I apologize. Here's my hug. You know, a lot of times it's okay to, like, I remember one of the sisters earlier said, veg out, you know, TV times, you know, sporadic, you know, you get to stay up and watch TV and have movie times for however so long. So, you know, those are some of the tools and some of the things that I would suggest to parents who are needing a little bit of a boost with their babies.
Thank you, Adrianne. Resourceful. Tammy, do you have anything for this question? Any resources?
So I work with toddlers right now. So trying to get the girls to understand it's all about routine. Try to keep them on a routine at home. It will definitely help your life. We have what's called a class dojo that we go to, and we read stories to the kids, send a video of us reading a story. We post that on our class dojo. It's a really good resource that you can ask your, maybe your kids at home if their teachers use that. That's a really good resource. So every day since we've been home and the kids have been homeschooled, what my job is I call the girls and we check in. We check in and make sure that they have the resources that they need, even if it's diapers, food. What do you need? What can I help you with? Are you able to get on and get to your work? If you have any issues, you know, are you able to reach out to your student advocate at school and talk to her about not just issues about homework? Maybe it's you're having anxiety, you know, being at home with the baby all day. You know, some of our girls work, so, you know, maybe they're not working anymore. Or maybe some of them are still working, so they're having to leave the baby with someone, you know, while they go to work. So we're just making sure that, you know, we're staying in touch, so their world is not too much turned upside down. It already is turned upside down, but we're trying to stay connected. I know I look forward to being able to talk to them, checking in on my babies, making sure that they okay, letting them know that they're missed, you know, and some of the girls have told me, you know, they miss you all terrible, you know, so, because that's who they saw, you know, that was their consistency every day, was seeing us. So now that's not there anymore. So they could be wondering what's going on, even as, you know, babies all the way up to 3 years old. They could be wondering what's going on with my routine. Why does it look different? So, but I know I look forward to talking to my parents every day. They call me at 50 years old every day at the end of the day and want to know, am I okay? So, and I do that with my boys. You know, they're grown. They're not in the house anymore. But I call them and, you know, I just want to check in on you, make sure you're okay. You know, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on, you know. So just continue communicating, you know, checking in on them, you know, checking in on their feelings. Yeah, just, you know, just continue to be a source of communication that they know that, you know, you're there when they need to reach out to someone.
Okay. Thank you so much, all of you, for that. That question was multi-layered, and thank you for all of those great answers. The final questions are really they have kind of been answered already in some ways. So let me just say this, or let me ask this. This is definitely an interesting time that we are moving through on the planet. And as we can see as Black people, and definitely people of color, this pandemic it's affecting the world, but it's really infecting our population the most. What would you ladies like to leave with our listening audience, our viewing audience, that could possibly give them a glimmer, a piece of light, a piece of, a piece of hope that all is still well? What would you like to say that would help someone remain steadfast in just believing, that, hey, God and your ancestors didn't bring you this far to leave you. So I know you're struggling. A lot of us are struggling. There are a lot of Black and brown people in communities that are really struggling for basic needs at this point. And I think it's been even more emphasized now. I think they were struggling before. So now the need is greater. So what do you ladies, or what would you ladies like to leave with our listening audience, our viewing audience, that could help, leverage the way they're feeling and to help them to the next moment? Olomi, you want to go first?
Okay, yes. Definitely, I need us to always remember our strength. I was talking to my brother in Barbados last night, and I know you and brother Aaron know him, Brother Heru, and he reminded me that we are indestructible. Don't forget that. Keep that in your mind. So that's the first thing. Remember your strength. But the second thing is that we really have to hearken back to the ways of our ancestors. We really do, you all. Like I always say, I'm from the country. I know Sobande can completely identify with this. And I mean, my mother, even though she worked 8 hours a day, she always grew some food. Yeah, we got to grow a little bit of something, right? Even if it's just on the side of your kitchen. We've got to, guys. I know it seems difficult, but we really got to go back to those old ways. You got to keep your house clean the way grandmama and them did. I mean, we might not can't afford all the fancy cleaners. When you go in the store today, you can't find some of them, but whatever soap and water you got, keep your house clean. All of this is what keeps diseases away. Our grandmama and them used to call this stuff pestilence. And this comes from filth, guys. We got to keep our house clean. Grow your food. Keep your body clean. And when I say keep your body clean, I mean bathe, but I also mean eat real food, right? Cook your food and eat it. Don't be getting food from nobody else because you don't know whether or not they clean. My grandma used to say, don't eat everybody rice, right? And that means McDonald's. That's everybody rice. We don't know who's up in there cooking that, right? So cook your own food and eat your own food. True, we might have to tighten our belts a little bit. We might be eating a little bit less food, but it's going to do your body better if you've cooked it yourself. We've got to go back to the ways of grandmama them. That's why they were trying to teach us all of this, because they had lived through this before and they knew that days like this would be back. Life is an ebb and flow, but we are indestructible. Our grandparents have given us the way. All we have to do is walk in their footsteps. We have always been divinely guided and protected, and our steps are ordered. Do not doubt it. We are indestructible, divinely guided, protected. That's what I would leave you with. Do it the way grandmama did it. You know you're going to make it through.
All right. Thank you, Olomi. Ivory?
I would leave you all a verse out of 1 Corinthians 15. It's 1 Corinthians 15 chapter is an awesome chapter. But I'll leave with you the final verse in it, which is, therefore, my beloved brethren, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. There is nothing about you, just like my sister said, there's nothing about you that is wrong, except when you would lean on the world. You have to rest in the Holy Spirit that is in you and that dwells in you. You have to open yourself up to God, who knows all and is all, and stop relying on the world to have the answers, because the world will always be flawed. Lie and rest in those things that are perfect. It'll give you perfect peace. It'll have you in health. It'll have you with a perfect peace of mind. It'll have you with a total sense of wellness, which is what we're all seeking. I just feel like we are relying on flawed options when we have full godly access, right? We have to really, really rest in what God has provisioned for us and nothing else, and we can't go wrong with that.
All right, thank you, Ivory. Adrianne?
I would say that something that we need to do, if we're not already doing, is love on yourself, be gentle with yourself, and forgive yourself. If you feel like, you've done something to get yourself in this position and you're kind of, feeling down, be gentle with yourself. Treat yourself how you would treat another sister who's going through it. You wouldn't be so harsh with her and, unforgiving and impatient with her. So treat yourself that way as well. And something that my mom would always say since I was younger is, this too shall pass. She would always say that this too shall pass, Adrianne. After a storm, there's a beautiful rainbow that typically comes out. And so you have to have a desire to move past the crisis and the eyes to see that beautiful rainbow that's in the sky. And something that I strongly recommend is, if you're not already taking supplements, go ahead and get you a couple of bottles of, some supplements. This is going to do you right. It's going to do them babies right, because you might think they tripping, baby, but go on and get them something and watch them mellow out. They're going to act like they got some sense. You're going to act like you got some sense. And it's not going to be the grand finale, but it's going to help ease and smooth some things out. And, keep a vision board or a journal. Track this, because you can look back and say, my goodness, a couple of years ago, I was kind of going through it, but look where I'm at now. Look where I'm at now. I can say that, a couple of years ago, I was leaving an abusive jerk, but now I'm married to an amazing man who supports me and loves me. Okay, I made it through there. Okay, I was almost 300 pounds and sat on the couch like a fat cat, purring. Now I work out every day at 5:30 a.m. Okay, I made it through. So just love on yourselves consistently is what I would suggest.
Oh, thank you, Adrianne. Loving on yourself consistently. That's good. Tammy, would you like to leave anything that could inspire anyone that's listening or watching?
I would say, I said earlier, to make sure that you communicate. But with that being said, you also have to watch who you're communicating to. You can't tell everybody doesn't have the same energy. So you have to just be careful who you're venting to, but you do need to reach out to someone and just get that off your chest. I know I've called you many a times, and we just talk it out. And when I hang up, I feel better, and I know what I need to do. But you have to have somebody or a couple of somebodies to just call and be able to get that off your chest. And also just take care of yourself. Like they said, eat right, exercise. If you need to, put yourself on mute for a couple days, then that's what you need to do to get yourself through whatever's going on. And like my governor says, we'll get through this together.
All right, look at you, slogan writer there. We'll get through this together. Ola Omi, could you tell everyone about the one particular book that you wrote that could be a resource for parents who are now home and find themselves unschooling their children?
Yes, I have a book called Raising Revolutionaries, and you can find it on Amazon. It's the only one with that title, but my last name on Amazon is Akalatunde. I'll type it in the chat for you, just in case another one under that title has been written. But it is a guide to unschooling children of African descent. It has a lot of fun activities you and the babies can do together. It has a lot of recipes you and the babies can make together. And it just will help you with your mindset and reminding you that you are divine. You have the divine power to teach your babies. So even though you're in a situation where you haven't decided to be at home with them, you have the divine power to give them what they need. Don't doubt it. Don't doubt it. Give them the best that you've got. And I am an educator. I educate in the university sector. And I'm going to tell you this with no remorse. If you give them the best that you've got every day, they are getting the best. Okay? I'm an educator telling you that. So please don't worry. Give them the best that you've got, and they are getting the best. And they'll come out on the other side of this better, right? Education is a matter of confidence. If your parents work with you and spend time with you, it's the confidence that they'll give you. So take this time to build confidence with your babies. But the book is Raising Revolutionaries, Osunyemi Akalatunde. It's very easy to find right there on Amazon. And yeah, you'll love it. Chock full of good information. I'm sorry there's no pictures or anything like that for the babies to draw, but it's all kind of information that you can share with them. And I have, as Sobande was saying, I have 6. I've been homeschooling, I guess, about 29 years. All my older babies went off to college, graduated. I have 2 young ones here now. And it's a magical ability that we all have. I trust and believe that every mommy and every baba has the power to do it.
Yes, she's when you talk about a mentor for homeschooling, she's on top of the game. So I definitely recommend the book to any of you listening or replaying this podcast. Well, ladies, what I'd like to do, or I don't know, maybe we have some gentlemen on as well. I'd like to give you the opportunity before we close out to ask any questions of our guest panelists tonight, or if you want to add any comments to any of the questions that were asked, anything that came to you while we were talking that you were divinely inspired with, some information, some seeds of knowledge that you'd like to leave. This is your opportunity to leave that with us. Do we have anyone who would like to say anything? If you could raise your hand, because I can't see any faces. Make sure you unmute yourself. Anyone? No one? Okay. All right. Well, if there is no one, I am going to assume that everyone is satisfied like a fat kid with a piece of cake. So therefore, I will say this final word. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me. To my panelists, my sister, my sisters, I want to thank you for taking some time out of your schedule. I know that most of us are doing the same things. We're trying to maintain a level of normalcy. So I want to thank you for taking this time out of your schedule, wherever you are in the world, to do this podcast, Seed, Soil, and Soul, with me tonight. If there is anything that or website or anything that anything else you want to leave with our audience, make sure you stick that in the chat so that they can get that. They can get to your website, they can get to your email, or they can get to your phone number if you're going to leave those type of resources. And my gift to anyone tuning in is this. I believe that we are all divinely placed on the planet for a reason, a season, a space, and a place, and a time. And I think it is our job to make sure that we are living not only our best lives, but an intentional life. And that looks different. That's going to look different to different people. So I want to leave you with the thought of everyone that came before you, all the people in your lineage, all the things that they've been through, all the hard times. This conversation made me think about my grandmother and our discussion about her going through the Depression. Think about the people who got you to this point. Think about all of the people in your family line that went through crisis mode and didn't have any tools. We are probably even more blessed than they were because we have additional tools, but a lot of us don't seek it. We don't seek it out. And that can be a really big travesty. So I urge each and every one of you, if you are suffering through something, don't suffer. You don't have to suffer. Reach out. Let your ego go. Reach out to those who you think can help you and who is in your corner fighting for your highest and your greatest good. Faith without works is dead, and you can have all the faith you want, but if you're not putting forth the effort to move your life in the way that it should be, you're moving empty. You're moving to an empty drum. You're moving to something it's not fluid. There is no movement. It's like pond water. It's just still. So make sure that you are letting pride and ego go, and that you are really being intentional about creating the life that you want for yourself. I hope to see some of you tomorrow for our herbal happy hour. It won't be so serious. We'll be doing some drinking. If you want to say it like that, using some common herbs. The recipe will go up. If you want to grab those things, you may already have those things in your home. I would love to see you tomorrow. And until then, I want everyone to make sure that you are doing things that are in the flow of the universe. Remember, everything works in order. We're the only thing that works out of order. Everything works in order. Humanity is the only thing out of pocket. So get yourself in pocket. Do your prayers, do your work, be your own best version of yourself. Show up for life, and life is going to always show up for you. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you. Bye.